how do we go and use these ideas to come up with a central focus, basically your main story? How do we avoid this process of scrapping ideas and leaving them all in the waste paper bin? Well, if you want to just write about something, you're trying to turn it into a framework. You use the framework of a conflict story, as in two people against each other, find two people, and then let the story flies. If you want to write a story as something simple, for instance, about your cat, if you have a cat or a dog, how a cat survives without its master is a story that'd be quite moving. And that's a resistance story. It's about your pet surviving. So it's not you telling an anecdote about your pet. It's a story about what happens when you're not there. And it can be quite interesting if you do it well. If you're worried, well, I might not do it well, write about something that could be interesting in that scenario. What if you weren't there? What would happen? And start asking yourself lots of questions, which will then start to become the points of your story. The heart of the story is something very simple. It's about a cat surviving. That's basically all the story is. And then you focus on things like sensory language and emotions and description and even symbolic things. That will be where the depth in your story, and that's where the really good parts of your story will come from. If it's a story about you struggling to learn an instrument, that's a perfect story. I've come across some really good ones about that. And particularly it's because they're so passionate about their craft, and their passion comes across in the way that they tell it. And their frustration and their motivation to succeed is really coming across in the way that they describe it and the way they use emotion. As I said, some of the best stories I've read are purely just about that. Those are really good things to be able to use as well. So you can distill your story down to one key idea first, one very broad idea, and then narrow it down to a couple of random characters and then build on it from there. The idea of conflict or resistance can be used to join two things. So if we make it a story about a man disagreeing with his TV, then all you need to do is put in specifics that will enhance it. What I mean by that is to start to build around this idea of a person hating their TV. Why would they hate their TV? And think of experiences that you've had. I'm sure many of you, or many of you would know your parents having an experience where they're at home, they can't work out a particular menu, or say a colours menu on their TV, and they go mad at it. And then from there you can get silly and exaggerate, attack a TV with a hammer. That's perfectly fine. And that's how you make a story out of those ideas. Really, it's just about trying to find a story from everyday life and exploring it in such a way, exploring it in a way that people can relate to. And that's what you'd be looking for. Having a story that's relatable, having ideas which come across to different groups of people, and making it something which is interesting for your reader. And certainly the way it's told, this is a very simple story. It doesn't have a big plot twist or anything else like that. However, these are the stories that actually do get band 6s because of the way that they're told and the way that the language is used in describing them, because of the fact that they don't really try and go overboard. Keeping it simple is the best way to go. It's not the quality of the idea sometimes as much as it is how well it is written. So keep your story ideas very, very simple. You don't need a whole ton of work unless you're going to write a novel. So you don't need to have about 7,000 plot points. You don't need to have twists and backstabbing and all the rest of them, because you're going to be struggling to fit that into 5 pages. The idea is not to condense an entire 3-movie trilogy into about 5 pages. And that's a very common mistake I come across, and I come across it every day. If I had $1, I'd be a very wealthy man. All those things. So keep it fairly plain to start with, and then really build it up through the quality of your description, not so much through the amount of plot twists. You don't necessarily need to be extremely creative, nor do you necessarily need to be a massively talented writer to be able to come up with details and come up with all these different ideas which will build upon your story. Don't overcomplicate it. Keep it nice and simple. Find stories that follow a basic idea, follow a basic theme, even if you can find a theme that goes with it. Explore it deeply through just a couple of very simple interactions, which you can be then described in such a way which become interesting. Think of it that way. Think of it as just keep it simple, come up with ideas that you can explore in depth, and that's all there is to finding ideas and stories. So I wish you all the best luck, and I'll see you next time.